Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, we help keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home, safe home.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Back and better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. It's Thursday. Off we go toward the weekend. And on the menu this morning, Giancarlo goes yard again. Football tonight with an absolutely terrible game. And we need to have another discussion about safety, only this time it's not football players, it's baseball fans. Golic, all of that, and a whole lot more on the menu today.
Certainly a ton of sports to talk about, but that issue of fan safety rears its ugly head again with a young, very, very little girl who got hit in the face with a foul ball. Just, we've talked about this before, the netting, where it's put up, how it's put up, is it enough? And what a tough scene at the Yankee game. And you could see the anguish on the player's face when this all happened. That was tough to see and tough to watch. And you just hope everything's okay with the little girl.
Absolutely. We will hear from several people directly involved in that, including Rob Manfred, who is, I suppose, in this particular case, indirectly involved, but most significantly involved, because the decision is going to have to be made as to whether or not they do something that I know they don't want to do, and I understand why they don't want to do it. But the reality is, well, I'm going to make a ridiculous analogy here, but this whole idea of court storming and fans running onto a football field to tear down the goalposts and everything, I love it. I want people to be able to do it because it's fun. But somewhere along the line, someone has to point out, or someone has to tell me, how many people are getting hurt doing this? What are the chances people are going to get hurt? And when does it stop being worth it? I mean, when Northwestern beat Indiana in 1987, I remember it like it was yesterday, or January of 88. They were the defending champs from 87. I believe to this day I was the first person who made it out onto the court, and I was jumping around, and it was one of the great times of my sports life. And I wasn't afraid for my safety or anything else like that. But if people are getting hurt in these things, and especially at football, when they're tearing down goalposts and the thing is collapsing, then you just can't do it.
Can't do it.
Yeah, so you don't want to put netting all across the baseball field, because you want to be as close to the game as you can. But if 4-year-olds are getting hit in the face, you have to really consider it.
Well, you do, and even adults there, because we're in an era where there are a lot of people looking down at their phone. And you could sit there and say, well, that's their fault. They're sitting in those seats. They need to look up. But, tell that to a team or to, Major League Baseball when something horrible happens. If you say, well, if they get serious, well, it's their own fault. They were looking at their phone. It doesn't fly too far. I mean, even though we understand the concept of that, when you're in that particular situation, it just doesn't seem as kosher to say.
Yeah.
Well, that's their own fault. If they're sitting there in the hospital getting all stitched up because they were looking at their phone. You don't go to a game as a fan and the end result is you getting hurt. Now, sometimes things happen. We get that. But as far as running on the field, storming a court, it's supposed to be fun. But is it worth somebody getting hurt? No, I like it as well. I think it's cool. But as soon as you get that injury, it's like, okay, we can't do this. We're there for your entertainment if you have a good time, but for no one to get hurt, even though, as they say, it would ruin it for everybody else. Because I don't think it happens often that people get that hurt. But it takes once, right?
Yeah, that's
not supposed to happen.
We have this look, if you go back and check my timeline and the conversations that we've had, we've talked about this forever.
Yeah.
And I've been saying forever, baseball has to do this. And the time to have the conversation is not when the 4-year-old girl gets hit in the face. It's before she gets hit in the face.
Right.
Because you don't want the 4-year-old. It doesn't make it. How many people's fun equals one 4-year-old girl right now in a hospital, and the last we heard from the father was they didn't know if she was going to require surgery or not. On a 4-year-old girl going to a baseball game.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, the math on that doesn't compute. And first and foremost, you're concerned about her. There are HIPAA laws, so we don't really know the details of her injuries, nor do we need to know. It's not our business to know. It's the family's concern, of course. And everyone involved shows all the appropriate amounts of concern. I don't believe Major League Baseball doesn't care. I don't believe that. The players obviously are devastated.
Yeah, you see them, yeah.
So, so that's one of the big topics of conversation on the menu today. We got the football game. Well, why don't we do off the top? Why am I dancing around off the top?
Do it.
We can just do off the top. Here we go. Let's start with Chris Sale, Mike. Is he the American League Cy Young winner? Is Corey Kluber the American League Cy Young winner? Chris Sale keeps just mowing him down. He's got 300 strikeouts.
Yeah, he struck out a final batter he faced in Baltimore last night, giving him 13 strikeouts in the night, 300 for the season. He reached 300 strikeouts in the season, third in the third fewest innings. Only 2 pitchers. And it seems whenever we do a pitcher list, Randy Johnson is always on it.
Sure.
And so the fewest innings was Randy Johnson and then Pedro Martinez and then Chris Sale. So he also joins, Sale does, Randy Johnson, Nolan Ryan twice, and Steve Carlton as the only players who have 300 strikeouts in their first season with a new team. So, yeah, I mean, I think he is a tick ahead of Corey Kluber. Maybe I just say a tick because I'd like to see Kluber win it, but he's been an absolute monster. Kluber's ERA
is better.
Yeah.
They have the same number of wins. I'm looking at their numbers right here.
Both have 17 wins. Kluber's ERA is a little bit better.
Not a little bit.
Well, yeah, you're right. 275, 235. And strikeouts, it's a difference of 48. Sale has 48 more than Kluber. I'd give it to Kluber.
Yeah, look, you're a Cleveland. I get it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very interesting vote. I'd like to see what someone like Buster thinks about who's going to win that. Meanwhile, Giancarlo Stanton does it again. His second home run, Golic, in the last 3 days.
Yep, his 56th home run of the year. So he's on pace now for 59. He has 10 games left. Do we think he can do it? Remember, he talked at 61 as being the real record in his mind, even though we know the real record is 73. He needs 4 more to join the 60 home run club, something done just 8 times in league history. He's actually ahead.
And only twice legitimately.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He's actually ahead of the pace of Sammy Sosa in 2001 and Babe Ruth in 1927, who at this point in their season had 54 home runs, or Stanton has 56. A couple other guys.
Say that again. He's ahead of the pace that Babe Ruth was on in 1927.
1927.
Probably the most famous baseball season ever played.
And then a couple of guys close to 60 home runs. In 2002, A-Rod had 55 home runs with 14 games left. He ended up only hitting 2 more, had 57 for the season. And in 2006, Ryan Howard had 56 home runs with 21 games left, but he only hit 2 more after that. So, again, Stanton has 10 games left and is sitting at 56.
I like that they now calculate the exit velocity.
Oh, yeah, isn't that great? Yeah.
He left the yard at almost 117 miles an hour. He hit the ball 117 miles an hour.
Doesn't Judge have the highest one this year, like 121, I think?
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I just like that they can calculate that.
True.
That's really remarkable.
Off the top.
All right, the Rams and the 49ers tonight on Thursday Night Football.
You laugh at that. I like what the Rams are doing, and certainly the 49ers aren't where they want to be right now. They still have they don't have their quarterback of the future right now.
They haven't scored a touchdown this season.
You know what? You look at it one way, I look at it another. I look at where is the team going to go. Now, the biggest difference to me is the 49ers don't have their quarterback. I like what I'm seeing out of the Rams with Jared Goff coming along. Gurley ran well, the defense and what they can do. I'm actually looking forward to the game, and you have a couple of coaches who haven't been long since they could go to a bar. Their one is 31 years old. That's Sean McVay. Kyle Shanahan is 37 years old. Combined their days old, it's the third youngest head coaching matchup, but there's only one coaching matchup ahead of it because it was 2 times they played.
Don't tell me.
It was 1992.
So that's not John Gruden. I was going to guess
not John Gruden. It is part of a very famous coaching, one of the most famous coaches of all time, but it's not him.
David Shula.
And?
Who would have been another really young coach then?
Really, really young. Crazy special teamer, coach that loved to run up and down the field.
Was it Bill Cowher?
Bill Cowher.
Wow.
Bill Cowher and Dave Shula.
So he was that young? I didn't realize he was that young.
They were the youngest pair, and twice they face each other. Now this is the third youngest pair. How about this, though? In the last 22 games.
This is the stat of the day.
This is it. In the last 22 games, the 49ers are 3-0 against the Rams. And 0-19 against everybody else. They have the Rams number.
That's a remarkable statistic.
Yeah, it really is.
Look, am I intrigued by what the Rams are doing now?
Yes,
with Jared Goff and Gurley's playing better and Cooper Kupp and all the other. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, they are. They've got Donald now. The 49ers are a team they're where the Jets are.
Yeah, I mean,
at the embryonic stage of building.
Mm-hmm.
And all I'm saying is, from a national interest standpoint, They're not a real sexy matchup, right? I mean, you don't have not a real sexy matchup. I'm not suggesting I won't watch it.
Right.
I'll watch it because it's football, and you watch football. But
well, at least the team is playing tonight that the mayor wanted in Los Angeles.
That's right. If it was the
Chargers, well, it'd be a whole other story.
Eric Garcetti would be doing something else.
Off the top.
Well played. And finally, Jake LaMotta died yesterday, and it's fascinating. Jake LaMotta he was an iconic fighter long before you and I were born.
Yeah.
But not in a way that it lasted. Like when I was a kid, I knew who Sugar Ray Robinson was. Right. I knew who Joe Louis was. There were some boxers that were way before my time that I had heard of. Jake LaMotta was not one of them. And then they made the movie Raging Bull, which is one of the great sports movies of all time.
Robert De Niro, man.
De Niro's brilliant in that, and it's Scorsese and it's Joe Pesci, and it's a great movie. If you've never seen that movie, I have no idea how well it holds up. I haven't seen it in a long time. But I certainly remember loving that movie, and it made LaMotta incredibly famous to generations that would never otherwise.
Because
have
it wasn't the International Boxing Hall of Fame says his record is 83-19-4 with 30 knockouts. That's not going to be too memorable to people, but. He gave Sugar Ray Robinson his first loss in 43, and a bad part of it was the mob kept trying to get him to fix fights, and he kept not doing that. And I think it was in 1947. He did fix a fight and got suspended for that.
And he got a title shot for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the history of boxing is loaded with all this kind of stuff.
And I love the ancillary things. Like, he got into boxing because he tried to go into the military, and he was rejected because of a medical condition. So he boxed.
Huh.
I mean, you always think of the path of somebody. What if you got into the military? Where would anything, where would it have gone? But he got rejected for a medical condition and got into boxing. And he was a guy known for just letting the other guy throw haymakers at him so he could get in close enough to then beat the guy up. It was really incredible.
The legendary moment in that movie when Robinson just annihilates him and they stop the fight, and he's basically out on his feet, but he will not go down. He will not go down. And he walks over to the center of the ring and he says, "You never got me down, Ray. You never got me down." And you get chills remembering it if you've seen the movie. It's a brilliant movie, and again,
it's one of those things where he's not obviously anywhere near the greatest in that conversation, but certainly the name because of the movie. It's just a fun one for the younger generation again to Google. Jake LaMotta and kind of read about it, and it's a pretty interesting history.
All right, that's
95 by the way, 95 years old.
The beating that he took in the ring on a regular basis, and he lives to be 95 is remarkable. And by the way, Jeremy Schaap, who did a magnificent obit that we just watched on SportsCenter, and that we're going to cut down and play for you on TV later this morning, is really, really interesting stuff. It points out that he had a longtime fiance.
Yeah,
he was 95. I guess they weren't rushing into anything.
Well, they had time.
95 years old, a longtime fiance. Anyway, R.I.P. Jake LaMotta. It was, and because of the movie, he developed a whole other level of fame.
Dude went into
coming back again in the 80s.
Retired in 54. Went into acting and stand-up comedy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's
remember
just awesome.
At the end of that's how the movie begins and ends with De Niro, who gained like 50 or 60 pounds to play the part, and him smashing his head into the wall in the prison. It's a tremendous movie. But you don't want to remember the man today because they made a movie about his life. He was a great fighter in his day and legendarily fought Ray Robinson, who, if you were to ask someone like Max Kellerman or Brian Kenny or someone who knows much more about boxing than the two of us put together, I think the immediate answer to the question, who's the greatest boxer that ever lived, the answer is Ray Robinson. I believe that's the answer.
And LaMotta gave him his
LaMotta fought him 6 times.
Yeah, gave him his first loss in 43. Yeah. All
right, that's what everyone's talking about. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. So a 4-year-old girl gets hit in the face with a screaming foul ball at Yankee Stadium yesterday. And I've told this story before. I've only one time in my life sat in seats like that at a baseball game. When I was a kid growing up, we went to the Yankee games all the time with my dad, and we sat all the way upstairs. And then these days, and when I go to games with my kids, we don't sit down nearby the field or anything like that. But one time in Chicago, where at least at this point they had no netting of any kind, we were sitting up the third base line. The Cubs gave us tickets. States was all excited to be back and take the kids to Wrigley Field. And we were sitting quite near the field up the first base line. and there was a line drive that was hit like near us, not close enough that it was going to hit us. But at that point, I realized, holy smoke, we are directly in harm's way. And my kids were little at that point, so I was vigilant. I mean, I moved so that I was sitting on this side of them, the home plate side of them. And I was as focused on that game as I've ever been on a game in my life. You don't realize just how much these balls are screaming at you and how close you are to it until you're
we see it all the time.
There.
We see them hit into the stands all the time, and the liners and people put a hand up or something to block it, and they'll deflect it. I'm sure it stings the hand and all that. But, that's a moving baseball that unfortunately finds a bad mark every now and then, and that's exactly what happened yesterday. The face of a 4-year-old girl, I mean, the players, you just see it on their faces, the devastation there. And it brings back, again, this unfortunately is the type of thing that is sometimes the final straw to bring change, because this has been talked about before, the netting going, further down the first and third base line. It's been talked about, but nothing's been done about it. So you wonder if it's going to take that moment, and was this that moment yesterday that says, okay, you know what, that's enough. We have to do something.
Now, this has been talked about a lot. Owners have expressed concerns that additional netting would detract from the experience of their ticket holders in certain premium seats.
Those are expensive seats.
I get that.
Those are expensive seats. I get that as well. And now you're putting the net, and you can obviously see through the net. The net's right behind the plate. But I get what they're saying. All of a sudden you have just a little bit of a barrier in an area where normally you're right there, seeing everything. Now, do I think, and I don't go to a lot of games, so I'm not the one to ask this. It's those there. Would it detract from your experience?
Here's the thing, that you've got two separate concerns. You've got the visual impediment that it creates, to whatever degree that is significant. And then there's, for lack of a better word, the psychological impediment that it creates. Like when you're sitting down by the field, you feel like you're right there.
Yeah.
You and I have been on the field.
Yes.
I've been able to throw out a first pitch and all that kind of stuff. You realize how close
they're
you
right
are
there.
to the fans. They're right there.
Yeah.
If there's a net in between you, even if you're still that close, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
And they don't want to take that away.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of interaction at times between players and the batter's box and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
They don't want that stuff to be lost. And I get it. I understand that. But you can't have 4-year-old girls getting hit in the face with balls either.
Yeah.
You just can't have that.
Yeah.
Here's Todd Frazier, who was on the field and visibly shaken.
It was terrible, shaken up a little bit, and I don't know really what happened. I hope she's all right, but it was just something that I wish never happened. It was tough. It was tough to watch and tough to be a part of, to be honest.
Todd, when you hit a ball like that, do you follow it with your eyes into the stands?
Of course. I mean, even at third base, I watch every foul ball that's hit pretty hard, and you don't see many of them hit anybody, and just very unlucky, man. It was tough.
What went through your mind when you saw something like that?
I thought of my kids. I have 2 kids under 3 years old, and just hope she's all right.
I mean, I just thought these guys know how fast and hard the baseball is hit, and as he said, even when he's at third base, he watches them. You watch and you see what happens, and you kind of hope. It's kind of twofold. You're looking, is somebody going to catch it? How are they going to catch it? Who's going to get it? And then, is it going to hit somebody? Because we've seen a bat go into the stands at times as well, and you're like, oh, God, And then when you see it hit somebody, or if you don't, and then you see someone hurt, and then it trickles back down to you. It's a 4-year-old girl. Oh, and she, by the way, got hit in the face with the baseball. You're like, oh, my God, you got to be kidding me. I mean, it's just devastating to the player.
Frazier hit that ball 105 miles an hour. The exit velocity that we were just joking around about gleefully in Giancarlo Stanton's home run was 116 miles an hour. That ball, which hit a little kid in the face, was hit 105 miles an hour. That's 105 miles an hour, like something that basically is as hard as a rock. Being hit directly at you.
Yeah.
And, you're going to blame a 4-year-old if she's not paying such rapt attention to everything that's going on that she might get hit in the face. I mean, this is what's going on. So the answer to this cannot be, well, don't have kids sit down there.
Right.
That's not a good answer.
No, it's not.
That's not the answer that baseball wants. It's not the answer anybody wants. If you're lucky enough to be able to bring a little kid down that close to a seat at a baseball game, you have it's going to be a great experience, and B, you have a really good chance of developing a baseball fan for the rest of his or her life. So is the answer, Mike, more? I mean, the only answer to this would be more netting if you're going to do more netting. That's the obvious answer.
Run it down the
question.
first and third base line. That's the.
Would you do it? If you're sitting where Rob Manfred is sitting, would you mandate it? And obviously, he can't do it. Let's bear in mind all these conversations we're having about Roger lately.
That's the owners,
with
the parks.
the NFL.
Yeah,
Rob Manfred can only suggest it.
Right.
He can't go. He can't call up the Steinbrenners or any other.
No,
owners.
because remember, the commissioner is hired by the owners.
Right. I wanted to play you him though. Here's Rob Manfred because he has talked about this many times before. Here's the commissioner of Major League Baseball.
It remains an ongoing discussion in the industry. We gave some guidelines 2 years ago, and what we have done since then is that we have encouraged the individual clubs to engage in a localized process, look at their own stadiums. Every stadium's different, and to try to make a good decision about how far the netting should go in order to promote fan safety. If you look at what's happened, there has been a continuous forward movement in terms of increased netting in stadiums around the leagues, and I expect that process will continue this offseason.
So I would imagine you have to try it, right? I would imagine you have to get to the point where you have to at least do it. Do you do it on a temporary basis? Do you try it, see what it's like, see if it, the results from it? Do you leave it up? I don't know, but I think a situation like this makes you think long and hard about, okay, this is, it's been real. We have seen people get hit before, but there's always that one moment, there's that one moment of, aha, okay, we've gotten by, has this one gone too far? And I think for some people, this is going to be that moment. Is this that moment where it went far enough where owners and or parks are going to make the decision, okay, we need to extend this. It's just we can't afford anything like this happening.
The best of Mike and Mike.
All right, we are back and better than ever. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and joining us now in studio is the one and the only Herm Edwards. Good morning, Herman.
Good morning. It's nice, these comfy chairs.
Like this, huh?
Yeah,
it's
pretty nice. Yeah. You guys should do shows here more often than these chairs right here.
Every now and again we do. This is the GNC Lounge.
Now, are they orange or red, Greeny?
To me, they're red.
To me, they're orange. What are they to you?
They're orange. They remind me when I was in Tampa, and we had old Buccaneer Bruce, and we had to walk him off the gangplank. We got rid of those popsicle uniforms we had. I mean, it's just we actually walked him off the gangplank. And the fans were there. We were changing uniforms. It was a big like, oh my, how many people showed up? It was unbelievable. We walked this guy off the plank, and he just, in the uniform just went right over to get him out of here.
Herman Edwards is here. He's got a million great stories. And before we get into all of the football, I did want to get your perspective because, among other things, you are the dad right now of a couple of little ones.
Yes.
The kids are little. They're not as little as 4, but they're young. And you see what happened to the ball game yesterday. And this is not going to be a rant about how baseball doesn't care about the state. I don't think that for 1 second. I think they are weighing two issues here. They're weighing, do we put the nets up all the way out to the foul pole or somewhere out, beyond the dugouts right now, and how much that impedes the experience for others, and how many people are getting hit with balls. But there's something about seeing a 4-year-old getting hit in the face and taken to the hospital, and we can only hope that she will be fine. But there's something about that feels as though it is going to create more conversation. Forgetting anything else, as a dad, what are your thoughts about that?
It was horrifying to watch. It really was. I watched it this morning when you guys were on, and it was like, are you kidding me? And I've been to some ball games, and it's no fault of the players. It's just, when that thing comes off the bat, if you're not paying attention, all of a sudden you're hit. And when a child gets hit like that, boy, it's just, look at the players. I mean, they're all like, everyone gets it. And I don't know why they don't, and I've said this for years, like in hockey, how the glass that just kind of goes across, that just, why don't they just
because they want you to have this experience.
You can still see through it, though.
Yeah, but they like the
they want a touchy-feely. I get it. I get it.
A lot of people were tweeting that in about that, but I would go with the netting. And here's my thought. I would say put the netting up. We always talk about when they tweak rules in sports. What do we always say? Well, the players will get used to it. The players will adapt. Well, you know what? The fans will as well. You put the netting up. They'll adapt. They'll learn. Very soon, you won't even realize it's there, and you'll be looking through it because you have game after game, and you'll just become used to it.
But is the glass easier to see through than the net? No.
Oh yeah,
no.
But I think it's you feel more.
You feel more because you can feel the. Okay, I got it.
You can interact. One of the things that you see at ball games all the time, of course, is guys are flipping a ball out to fans, and you lose that.
Well, no, it depends on how high you put the net. You still throw it over the top of the net.
Yeah, I mean, they're
you
usually,
can.
they're just sort of
No, I get it, but I mean, if
sitting
you
there.
don't really take that completely out of it, you can still get it out there.
Andrea tells me there are a lot of "it's the parents' fault" tweets this morning. I'm not even
Oh,
reading
I don't
those.
Why is that?
Balls hit 100. Well, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Throw yourself up as a human shield. The balls hit 105 miles an hour.
Gets there
It's not that
like
easy
that,
to react that quickly.
You make a great example, and you make a great point. I can remember going to an arena game in Kansas City, and I took my daughters, and this is when they were younger. They were like 5 and 6, and I'm talking to somebody, visiting with some folks, and the arena ball, they're throwing the ball all over the ball yard, right? And one comes actually at one of my little girls, and I see it out of the corner of my eye because I'm kind of peripheral talking to folks, but I'm watching the ball because I figured something could come, and sure enough, one comes sailing right at her head, and I kind of knocked it down. But are parents responsible? I don't know if they're responsible, but it happens so fast sometimes. Yeah. You just can't see it. It's like, oh, what just happened?
Yeah, I'm not putting that on.
No,
105 miles an hour coming at you, and you're supposed to have the reaction time of a ball player. I mean, it's not going to happen.
All right, that's a conversation that will continue. Let's get to some football with Herman. Here in the GNC Lounge, mix it up with the GNC Buy Two, Get One Free Mix and Match sale. The best thermogenics, vitamins, fish oil, and more from Performix are all Buy Two, Get One Free. The sale ends September 27th, only at GNC. The last game that we saw was the Giants and the Lions. We have Niners-Rams tonight. But the last NFL game was Giants and Lions, and it certainly was an eye-opener. That's 2 weeks, and it's longer than that we've seen this Giant offensive line just look a mess. Some of the schematics just don't seem to be. Whatever they're doing, it clearly isn't working. And I heard Ben McAdoo talking about possibly giving up the play calling, doing something quote-unquote drastic, up to including getting rid of the play calling responsibilities, delegating those to somebody else. You were a head coach. You were a defensive guy. Did you? I'm just trying to remember. Did you call the defensive sets and things like that on the sideline?
I had coordinators, and like you always have conversations with them, obviously, during the course of the game. You're involved in the game plan on both sides of the ball as well as special teams. But I always felt like I wanted to have a pulse of the team. I wanted to feel like I could go anywhere and didn't have to worry about a certain group. I wanted to coach the whole team along with the coaches. So I felt very comfortable with my coordinators. I do know this. Whether he calls the plays or not, it's not so much about the plays. It's really not. It's really about the first thing and the most important thing is how do we protect our quarterback? If you can't do that, it doesn't matter what plays you call.
How do they do it?
Well, in my opinion, they run a lot of 11 personnel, and we know that's one back, one tight end, and that's fine. But here again, when we go back to throw the football, what are we doing to protect the quarterback? Because if he can't function, we can't function. And he's the type of guy, he's not going to change. You're not going to move him out of the pocket and change the platform for where he throws. He wants to throw in the pocket. Okay, with that being said, what do? Do we eliminate 5 out all the time? Do we bring more protectors in? And who cares if they know? We got a pretty good quarterback if we keep him upright and if he's confident throwing the football, because that's what we do. We don't run the ball. I mean, that's secondary for this offense. They're not even trying to run the ball, okay? So let's run it, because it's easy to say, let's go run it. Why? You don't want to run it. Okay. You want to throw it around the yard? Okay, let's throw it around the yard, but let's protect the quarterback with formations.
Mike, how?
Exactly.
How are we doing?
Again, I talked about Ingram, who is not a big blocking tight end. He's 240, but that doesn't mean he can't run his routes attached at times.
Explain what that means.
Attached means if he's lined up right next to Eric Flowers, the left tackle, he's still going to go off for a pass. I'm not asking him to roadblock anybody. It's still in a passing down. But what that does, look at what Ziggy Ansah did. Ziggy Ansah just, when there's no tight end there, he just lines up wide, and it's a straight speed rush. Well, if you have a tight end there who's going off for a pass, nobody jams a tight end on a line anymore, so he's still going to get a release. And I'm not saying do it every play, but now Ziggy, either is he going to go all the way outside of the tight end, to which now he has to take, he's farther away from the quarterback, or if he goes through the tight end, as the tight end goes off for a pass, it's still more in a controlled area and not giving him the freedom. You have a backs can still go out on their routes, but you know what they can do is they can throw a shoulder into the rib of a D end who's rushing up the field. Just slow him down enough. And to me, it seems like, Herm, they're banging their head against the wall saying, this is what we run. Yep. This is our system. It's your job to block that guy. Well, my thought was that it's the coach's job to put your players in the best chance to succeed. And the best chance to succeed is your quarterback being upright. And that has to be priority number one.
I've always said this, a plan that can't be changed is a bad plan.
Yeah.
And if you got a plan, that's fine. And I just think at the end, your problems can never be bigger than your purpose. Okay? That's how it works in life. We all got problems. We got problems right now, okay, on offense, okay. Well, what is the purpose? The purpose is, first of all, protect the guy that plays with the ball. He's a quarterback, okay. That is our purpose. Well, how do we do that? Okay, well, here's our problems. The problems is we can't protect. Well, what do we do to help protection? You just mentioned one with the tight end, whether it's a back. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. They have enough personnel players where they can actually protect this guy.
So real quickly, because I want to finish on other football to talk about in a bit. The offensive line. I heard some former old linemen who I really respect, who are in this business now, talking about it, saying a lot of it starts with how you rate offensive linemen. So I'm going to go back to when you did it, and I've always thought a old lineman running a 40 was ridiculous. But I don't care what he runs a 40, and that's what these guys are saying. Quit worrying about their 40, how high they jump, how far they jump, and all that, and look at their feet, look at their hands, look at their technique. Maybe take a guy that's not as good as an athlete. You don't go, wow, what an athlete. But you know what he does? He steps the right way. His head's in the right spot. His hands are in the right spot. May not be a great athlete, but fundamentally he's more sound than this guy who looks like a great athlete.
Yeah, you make a great point. And I always like tough guys. I like tough guys. I like guys that just tough. I just think that those are the guys at the end you want, especially inside, okay? Your guards and your center, they got to be tough guys, okay? The left tackle, in my opinion, in today's world, he's a corner. He's a corner because he's playing against the best pass rusher out there. He's in space all the time. The left tackle's in space all the time. He's a bump and run corner. If you can imagine a bump and run corner playing a great wide receiver, they use the same technique. I can remember being a coach in Kansas City, and I would go in the offensive line room, okay? I was a scout. And I'd go in the offensive line room, and I basically would watch the left tackle against Derek Thomas, who was our defensive end, and Neil Smith. And I'm going, and Howard Mudd was the coach. I said, Howard, I said, this left tackle is like a corner playing bump and run. He says, Herm, you're exactly right. The footwork and everything. If you're playing bump and run, you're square. You got a guy coming off the edge. It's no different than covering a wide receiver playing bump. He's got to have great hands and great feet, okay? The other guys, to me, they're tough guys.
Right.
Just get you some tough guys. Get you some guys that grab and hold and kick you. Get you some guys that want to fight inside, and you'll be okay. And the left tackle is the guy he's the best athlete generally of the offensive lineman.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million, what color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo!
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Mike and Mike, Herm Edwards is in our studio. Go around the National Football League with some action. An interesting division. We talked about the Giants, so let's talk a little bit about the NFC East, where the Philadelphia, where both of you guys played the majority, Herman, your entire career.
Yep.
And the Eagles with an interesting start to their year, and Wentz and what they're looking like as you assess the Eagles through 2 weeks in a division where Dallas looks like they have some warts, and the Giants candidly look terrible, and Washington's a little up and down. I like the Eagles.
I like the Eagles. I'm a little bit worried. They're a little bit pass happy right now. When you break them down, they're averaging about 40 passes a game and only 16 runs. That's a little bit bothersome.
Tough to get done.
You know, you just can't get all of a sudden going one way too far. And I get it. You know, it's easy. You know, it's funny in football. I was a head coach. You know, those offensive coordinators, boy, they sit there and they run the ball and they make 2 yards, and it's like, and then they run it again and make maybe 3 yards, and then they sit there and go, you know, I could throw a pass out there and make 5 yards every time. And before you know it, they start chucking it. And they keep chucking it because they don't like what it takes to run. You got to have a mentality to run. It's not always pretty.
Too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not pretty, see? And so you start throwing it, and then when you look at the game, you go, boy, I only ran the ball 16 times, huh? Yeah, you threw it 40, coach. And before you know it, at the end of the season, you're going to have 670 odd passes, and you're going to be way out of balance. And that's never good.
We saw Detroit run in this game. We know they can pass. The defense playing a little better. With injuries in Green Bay, the quarterback, I'm not sure in Minnesota. Chicago still seems to be a ways. Could Detroit be the team in the North there?
Who would ever think it? I still think Green Bay is. Aaron Rodgers, he goes down and plays at Atlanta, and both his left tackles are dressed like us.
Yeah.
They're standing there watching the guy. They're up there looking at the screen, looking at themselves. Hey, we're on television. No, you should be out there. Your poor quarterback's running around. He got no
then
shot,
you lose
right?
Your receiver,
You're
your
right.
interior
and
line.
So I still think Green Bay, when they get healthy, their defense is playing a little bit better, which is good. And I think when they get healthy, they're still the team to beat.
Herman, give me some Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. I was on the afternoon show with our friends in Chicago on ESPN 1000 the other day, and the fans are screaming for the rookie quarterback. They're seeing Deshaun Kaiser playing in Cleveland and Deshaun Watson playing in Houston, and we traded up to get this Mitchell Trubisky, and the quarterback that we have here, Mike Glennon, is not setting the world on fire, and he's not our future. I want to see the kid. What do you think?
Well, I think he's got about 2 more games, maybe. And then you got to pull the hook. Because here's the problem you have. You got a veteran guy who hasn't played in a while. And I said this. He's going to get off to a slow start probably because he hasn't played a lot. But here's the problem when you look at it from the coaching standpoint. You go, I got a veteran guy in here now. He's turning the ball over. Okay? I mean, he's giving it to the other guy. He's turning the ball over. Now, I get a rookie to do that. I mean, hey, that's what I'm calling the guy. And I said, look, the rookie can turn the ball over.
He also had drop passes that could have beat Atlanta in week 1.
I get that, but I'm just saying he's turning the ball over now. I said, you can't turn it over. I said, because I bring the rookie in, he can turn it over. And by week 8, he's going to be a better player. Okay? That's what I'm betting on. Mm-hmm. And so that's what he's facing. He's facing that and the fact that they keep losing and they're not scoring points. Guess what? I bring the rookie in. The rookie can do this, right? And we're going to get better. He's going to be a better quarterback in week 8 because the fact that now he's got experience. And next year he's going to be even a better quarterback. So that's what, Glennon is facing right now. And he knows it. He knows it. He feels it. Trust me. He knows that, you know what? He hears it.
Oh, yeah.
You can say he doesn't hear it. He hears it.
Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks.
So you have tonight 49ers and Rams, and everybody's going to joke, what a bad game it is. I'm actually looking forward to it. I like what the Rams are doing and where they're going. If you're a 49ers fan, what are you looking for? You don't have your quarterback of the future yet. You have a young coach. You have a young GM.
Next year's draft.
So when you're watching this team tonight
Kirk
and
Cousins.
you're watching your team through the year, what are you looking for?
Be competitive. Just be competitive. And I think they've done that. Their defense is kind of, look, now, they didn't have a nice start. I mean, they played Carolina, team that went to the Super Bowl, and they turn around and go to Seattle. I mean, come on. I mean, they're rebuilding, and they got to play those 2 defenses right out the gate. Well, guess what? You're not probably going to score a lot of points, right? So I think they're competitive. I went to one of their practices. I mean, they're all in. They got a young nucleus on defense that they're trying to build. When Foster, he's hurt right now. He comes back, he's going to be a good player.
Solomon Thomas as well.
So they got some good players. Offensively, Coach Shanahan, he has the system. And I said this in the beginning. When he went there, he has this nice playbook, and the Atlanta emblems on the playbook. He just changes it a little bit, and he puts the 49ers. But when they break the huddle, Julio Jones, Sanu, and Freeman and Coleman, they don't break the huddle with that offense. And it's just so that's what you're dealing with right now.
Looks a little different.
Just a little bit.
I don't mean to make jokes, but they're one of those teams that is not – they're not going to win this year, and they're not developing a quarterback. So they're really kind of accomplishing almost nothing. It's a situation I know very well. I got to run.
Thanks, Herm.
Herman's got to go to Sports Center. Thank you, Herman. Back in a flash. Mike and Mike.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Stugotz will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line in just a few minutes. Adam Schefter in our studio in this hour as well. The news he has there is that the deal for Roger Goodell is essentially done. It's being papered despite Jerry Jones' protestation or whatever role in it Jerry was playing. And again, Schefter will be able to give us more details on that. Goodell is going to stay in place. And so despite some complaints on both sides, it will be Roger Goodell and DeMaurice Smith going forward, leading their respective sides of the NFL labor issue into the future. And, I think we all hope, regardless of which side we kind of favor, regardless of which side we think is more in the right versus in the wrong, that the two of them representing their quote-unquote constituencies can kind of work out some stuff and get in a room and figure out a few places that maybe they have some common ground and work with a little less public vitriol. I think that would be delightful, and I think it would be very good for the business.
I do as well. And I think right now, remember, you have the rest of this season, then you have 3 more seasons, the 18 season, the 19 season, and the 20 season. And it's after the 20 season that the CBA expires. So in this time, what can be accomplished? I'm not saying major things are going to be hashed out and reworked and redone, but what little victories can be had? What common ground can be found between the two? To start that, to realize that everything can't just be, about, well, we're going to do this, well, then we're going to strike and we're going to hold out, well, then we're going to lock out. And I understand for the players, if they really need to dig in on something, because I was there, one of the ultimate thing you're going to do is withhold your services and not report and strike. And as I said, I've done that. It didn't work when I did. It doesn't mean it can't work under certain situations, but you'd love for there not to be one. And I really do. Neither one of these guys waits until after the 2020 season. There needs to be, hopefully, some things talked about and discussed before that for as you said, the relationship to get better. We could all use that. We really could. I don't know, though. It's so bad right now. It's just so bad. As I compare it to, unfortunately, the Republicans and Democrats when they don't want to agree on anything just because one's a Republican or one's a Democrat. It's just like, well, wait, the league says that? Well, the union disagrees. Well, the union says that? Well, the league disagrees. And it's a shame that's why I say you find something that can give you equal footing so that there is some small agreement that you can build from.
Can I read you something, by the way? While you were talking, Chris Mortensen emailed both of us. You obviously haven't seen it yet, but I looked at it. And this is relative to our conversation about Josh Allen, who, again, Todd McShay continues to have as the number 2 overall prospect right now for next year's draft. Not just the number 2 overall quarterback ahead of Josh Rosen, but the number 2 overall prospect. This is what Mort just sent us, because we were pointing out his numbers have not been good. I'm reading you directly from Mort. He wrote to us, talked to a general manager about Josh Allen yesterday. Here are quotes. He lost his 3 top wide receivers, an 1,800-yard runner, and a pretty good center, and has a couple of freshman linemen. I'm just hoping he doesn't get hurt because he's so competitive. Probably should have come out last year. Would have been the first quarterback taken in the draft. Enough teams will work past the garbage you'll hear. No comparison with his overall skill set, size, arm, mobility, good mind, competitor. If you put him in the USC offense, Clemson, Oklahoma, or a bunch of others, they'd all be talking like there hasn't been a better quarterback prospect in years.
Yeah, that's why I said you can't go by numbers. Just like if a guy has a ton of touchdowns and less interceptions, you still want to look. Is he locking onto a receiver? What are his throws like? Is he throwing a guy open? There's always things that you can break down. And here's a guy in Josh Allen. Nobody recruited him. I mean, he ended up this big, strong, strapping kid end up at Wyoming. None of the bigger schools recruited him. So that's why I say be careful of locking in on the stats and watch the games. Watch how he throws the ball. Watch who he's looking at. Watch how he reads the defense. Look where his eyes go. How does he throw on the run? How much does he have to be on the run? There's way too many things to look at that you can throw out of college. It's just like for Lamar Jackson, throw out the running. Throw out all the plays he makes on the move because he's not going to run that much in college. So forget those plays. He's not going to be out of the pocket, this high percentage of the time. So forget a lot of that. Hone in on the things that you're looking for that translate to the next level.
But
that's what you do.
Isn't it just by definition harder to assess guys when they're playing with lower level talent, which is to suggest you're playing sometimes against. Right.
Not only
it's harder to assess them.
I mean, they assessed pretty well on him. He went early in the draft, and he seems to be panning out pretty well for a team that ran the ball a lot, by the way,
right?
Where he was. And then he had the hurt wrist and missed a lot of his last year there. Yes, it's harder to assess against the talent that you could be playing with, but it's not as hard to assess what you see. It's just like I don't care if an old lineman, is playing NAIA or the top division. You can look at his feet. You can naturally look at feet and hands. You can look at the natural play of how they move. I can watch a lineman, old lineman or D lineman, for 5 minutes and at least get something out of it that says, okay, all right, I see something there, or boy, there's a lot that needs to be worked on there. You can watch it. You can, because what you need at the next level. It's not this overall thing of can he play football. It's can he play football in the NFL. So that takes out a lot of the read option run by Lamar Jackson. A, we know he can do it, and B, he ain't going to do it much at the next level.
Right.
So, okay, let's filter through that, and let's look at the things that he's going to have to do. How does he do them?
Let's bring Stugotz in from the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz and a whole lot more. And we know that he is a fan of a team that will be very active looking for a quarterback in next year's draft. So I'm not sure how much of that conversation you heard there, Stu, but we know that, Sam Darnold is the guy that everyone seems to love, and Rosen has a lot of things that you like about him. And now here's Chris Mortensen saying that there are general managers saying that if Josh Allen had come out last year, he'd have been the first quarterback taken. Who's on the Stugotz radar for the Jets as of right now?
Greeny, here's what I know. Good morning, guys. Here's what I know. Whichever quarterback the Jets take, it's going to be the wrong one. I hate the fact. I hate the fact that the year the Jets are tanking, the year it looks like they're going to go 1-15 or maybe even 0-16, that there are 4 choices at the quarterback position. I want there to be one definitive choice where everyone's saying this is the guy you have to take. I'm not even certain it's Sam Darnold. I haven't been that impressed with him through the first couple of weeks of the college football season. But I can assure you of this. Whichever one the Jets take is going to be the wrong one. The other 3 will be Hall of Famers. The one that the Jets take will make it maybe 3 or 4 years in the NFL.
Are you truly at this point, and do you think 49er fans like you as a Jet fan are just hoping for a loss every week? I mean, are you truly looking for that?
It's funny, Mike, because I was going to ask Greeny. Usually it takes me like 6 or 7 weeks to get to the point where I'm rooting for Jet losses. I've already arrived there in week 3. Like, Greeny, how are you doing this? Because they have the Dolphins home opener this week. They have the Dolphins at home. They're 0-2. Even if they win this game, Mike, there is absolutely no hope for this Jet team moving forward. I have already resigned myself. Like, I'm rooting for the Jets to lose. This would be a bad win in week 3 against the Dolphins, even though it would get them to 1-2 in a division where, Buffalo's not that good. The Dolphins, if they lose to the Jets, we can say they're not that good. And the Patriots got off to a 1-1 start. I'm still rooting for a Jet loss this weekend, Greeny.
I would describe myself as the worst thing that a fan could ever be as far as a team is concerned. I've become indifferent. Like I made the comment to someone yesterday, the Jets giving up on a season, just tanking a season, has made me better at my job because I used to just watch the Jet game and then I'm frantically trying to catch up with everything else that happened at the same time. I don't even watch now. It's part of what's on the Red Zone. I watch whatever they show of the Jet game, which generally speaking is very little. Yeah. I mean, last week I saw a lot of Michael Crabtree. The first week I would say I probably watched half the Jet game. But the truth is, I know they're not trying to win. The owner's brother can say whatever he wants to say. The Jets are tanking a season. Use whatever term you want. They're not. They're rebuilding. Whatever the word is that they're more comfortable using. That's what they're doing. There isn't any reason to make an emotional investment in it right now. So that's the way I feel, Stugotz. I'm paying less attention than any other time in the entirety of my life.
Yeah, same here. I'm paying more attention to the guys playing on Saturday because I'm interested in which quarterback I think is going to be the best fit for the New York Jets. I'm totally with you on that, Greeny. It hasn't made me better at my job. I can tell you that, but nothing will make me better at my job. But I assure you of this. I am not paying nearly as much attention to the Jets as I have in years past. And you're right. I'm watching all the other games on the Red Zone channel. So listen, Golic, this is just the life of a Jet fan, man. It's a miserable existence. It's a miserable existence.
All right, let's go away from football and to what happened on the baseball field with the 4-year-old girl getting hit in the Yankees game by the line drive. And the talk comes up of netting. How far should it go down first and third baseline? Should it be extended or should it just be up on the fans to be able to protect themselves? We both think it is that time. And probably before this, that netting should be put up. Where are you on this, Stu?
I love that we're having the conversation after something bad happened. That's ridiculous. We should be having these conversations before something bad happens. Dan and I have talked about this on our show for years. Yeah, you can't, like the nature of the sport, that sport, baseball, where balls can come at you at a high rate of speed. There should be netting there. I mean, fans should be and feel protected when they go to a baseball game. I know it's part of the charm. You're close to the field, catching a foul ball. You bring your mitt, but not some of those screamers that come straight back and can potentially, like it did last night, hurt someone or hurt a child, and the child has to go to the hospital. Yes, they're absolutely. I don't care if it takes away from the charm of Major League Baseball. It's more important that kids and that everyone feel safe. Greeny, I have to be honest, though, and I don't want to laugh too much at this story, but I heard you at around 7:30 this morning talking about wearing catcher's masks to the baseball game for kids. Let me tell you something. I mean, my daughters will go to maybe a game, maybe 2 games a year with me. They do it just to please their dad. They'll go to a Met game with me. I will tell you, the quickest way to get my daughters to stop doing that with their dad is me telling them they have to wear a catcher's mask in 95-degree weather in the middle of July.
That's true. That's probably true.
You put the chest pad on, too? What are you going to do? Like, where does it stop?
Actually, if they would allow you to go out and maybe have a conversation with the pitcher, during the game.
There you go.
Shouldn't be joking around about a serious topic, but I understand what you're saying. Speaking of which,
Yes.
what is this picture that I'm looking at over here of you with an enormous scar on your head? What is this that you sent us here?
Oh boy, man, I cringe just looking at that. That happened a couple of years ago because I heard you guys talking about this story and talking about whether there should be golf netting in golf as well. That happened to me on the golf course. Now, on my golf course, I'm terrified to bring Greeny there, but I would love to bring Golic there. My golf course and the way me and my friends play, they're tricked out golf carts. The music is blaring. We play, we don't play foursomes. We play, 8-10 guys. In our group, and we all play the same holes at the same time. Greeny would be mortified by this. There is, a lot of alcohol being consumed. And so that's me. We're playing with 8 guys. We have a great match going. I can't hear. I think I'm on the 15th hole of my course, Greeny, and I can't hear one of my friends who's coming up with a 9-iron. I'm standing right there. It's the first time all day I took my hat off for a second just to get the sweat off of my forehead, and I can't hear him yell 4 because I had Pearl Jam blaring out of my golf cart, and I couldn't hear him, and I, possibly had a couple of cocktails in me, and I couldn't hear him, and the next thing I know, ball hits me right in the head, 16 stitches, and that's the story. Right to the hospital, 16 stitches right from there.
Well, a couple of questions, and first a statement. I want to play golf with you and your group.
I know you do.
Sounds
Golic.
like the
Yes.
best way to possibly play golf, and it actually sounds like when Jake got married, we golfed the day before. It sounds like that golf outing with groups and dangerous golf carts and, some alcohol involved. And secondly,
yes.
You said 15th or 16th hole. The big question, you got 16 stitches. Did you finish the round?
You know what? I wanted to. I tried. I was on the 15th hole. The 16th hole is a par 3. It's a short par 3. So I did play the 16th hole with blood pouring out of my forehead. But one of the guys in our group was a doctor, and he said, listen, Stugotz, you got to go to the hospital right now. You got to go to the hospital. And I said, Doc, all right, well, take me to the hospital. And he said, no, I can't do it. I'm too drunk.
That's a tremendous.
That is just awesome.
I'm so horrified by the notion of this golf event that once again, I know what you're doing. It may be an enjoyable activity. It is not anything I would describe as golf. But I'm sure it's an enjoyable activity. I'm sorry.
Well, listen, you're both invited. You're both invited. I know Golic will take me up on that invitation. Greeny, I know I will never see you at my golf.
No, I'm otherwise occupied. I'm busy from now until the end of time. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Stugotz is with us on the Shell Pinto Performance Line. I'm told that you're interested in this story we haven't gotten to today, and it involves 2 major league players and 1 autograph, and I will let you tell the story from there. Go.
Yeah, I don't even know the reliever's first name. I know his last name.
It's Pat Neshek.
Pat Neshek.
Pat Neshek from the Colorado Rockies. So he's a guy that, one of our producers, Guillermo, is convinced that Neshek is just in the major leagues to collect memorabilia. And I'm not certain I disagree with him. But this is a guy who goes around and he's a big memorabilia guy, and he gets a bunch of guys from Major League Baseball, just about everyone, from what I've read, to sign stuff for him, for his kids, for his family, whatever. And one of the guys that he doesn't have an autograph from yet is Diamondbacks pitcher Zack Greinke. Now, they had a conversation at the All-Star game, and Greinke said, hey, not going to do it here, but the next time you see me, just come up to me and I'll get it done for you. And so Colorado's in Arizona. He sends a couple of cards to their dugout for Greinke to sign. He doesn't sign them. And then, he goes to Greinke right at the pitcher's mound, and he says, hey, come on, man, we talked about this at the All-Star game. You said you would do this for me. And Greinke's response, which is perfect, and he's a bit quirky. We all know that. He's quirky. His response is, hey, man, you're wearing me out. And he just jogs away, which is a great response. And then he goes to meet him in the outfield. Like this guy. So I see a little bit of Stugotz in the Rockies reliever because this is exactly what I would do in an effort. Like I wouldn't take no for an answer. He meets him in the outfield, and he says, come on, Zach, do this for me. And Greinke does not break stride, runs right past him and says, listen, at this point, I wouldn't sign it if your kid was asking me to sign it. So I don't know who I agree with. I'm interested. Who do you guys agree with? Because I feel like he's being a pest and Greinke is doing the right thing here. But I will also tell you, I would act exactly the way the Rockies reliever, because I can't pronounce his name, I would act exactly the way the Rockies reliever acted in that spot. I don't take no for an answer.
It's Pat Neshek. Let me ask you, Mike, what is the the fraternity, the only times I've ever been on
Sign
the field.
it. I mean, are you kidding me? If this, in fact, is the story, what you just laid out, and it's true, this is completely on Greinke. Doesn't this, now, I don't know for a fact, but don't players sign stuff all the time
for each other
in the clubhouses
Definitely.
for each other?
I mean, I've physically seen that.
I have seen that as well. So, I mean, ask them to sign a couple of cards. Sign them. You know, the only reason it's getting aggravating now is, I guess Nishak keeps asking him, and Zach, because you didn't sign it in the first place. I don't know why he didn't sign at the All-Star game. Maybe I don't know the full story of this thing at all, but sign it. Sign it. You don't have an issue. So if this, in fact, is the way the story went, to me, the blame is on Zach Greinke.
For the only time, someone like Stugotz or I, the only time that we ever would have been on a field would be with a media credential.
Right.
And it is very explicit that you cannot ask to take a picture with anybody. You can't ask for an autograph, not for your kid, not for a charity,
right.
not for anything. Or they will take your media credential away, and they take that seriously, and they should. It's the right rule, because otherwise you would have that happening all the time. But I've always been under the impression that in the fraternity of players they would sign stuff for each other.
Absolutely.
So I don't understand it. It feels like there's a piece of this missing.
It does to me, too, Stu, that a piece of this is missing on why Greinke wouldn't sign these in the first place. I mean, it became aggravating.
I think Greinke is just being Zach Greinke. I think he's stringing him along and said, All-Star game. He just keeps pushing it, kicking the can down the road until he gets rid of the guy. I just don't think he's interested in signing it. And listen, Nishak tried to make it as easy as possible. He said, listen, just put a Z there. Don't even sign your whole name. And Greinke still said no, which I just think is, I don't know, to me it's comical, man. I'm kind of with Zach Greinke. 'Cause the guy is a pest. He is following him around. He's stalking Zach Greinke for a Z on his baseball card. Come on, man, you're an adult. And then he trashed him on social media afterwards, calling him all kinds of names, man. That's not cool. You can't do that to Zach.
No, it's not cool that Greinke didn't sign in the first place. So
okay, now here's
my
the
fault
part
with Greinke.
This is National League Baseball.
Yeah.
Greinke is a starting pitcher.
Yep.
He will bat.
Yes.
If in a start against that.
Right in the ribs.
You're talking about if Nishak is pitching. But does one of his teammates now have the Nishak it may not wind up
please
facing
don't tell
him.
me that's going to happen.
No,
Does one of the teammates?
No.
Come on.
No.
This is like he took our guy out at second with the cleats high.
No, it's not. It's nothing like
he
that.
He won't sign Nishak's autograph.
Nishak
I think he's got to pay.
He wants to pop him, go ahead, but nobody else should.
All right.
Greeny, I think the guys on his own team are saying, man, relax. You're a professional athlete. Stop being such a dork chasing Zach Greinke around for an autograph for a Z. I actually think his teammates are on Zach Greinke's side.
Listen, doing it a few times to Zach. Zach said no, we should have just left it at no. So Nishak keep going at it. I agree with you there. But it should have never reached that point. Greinke should have just signed.
All right, we only have a minute here for Beef Stew, so let's do this quickly. Stu, do you have more beef with Kyrie Irving denying that his being traded had anything to do with LeBron, or him saying he didn't owe LeBron an explanation?
He didn't owe LeBron an explanation. LeBron taught him that, by the way. I have an issue with Kyrie just not saying what everyone knows he wants to say. He hasn't spoken to LeBron. He never talked to LeBron about this trade. It is very obvious that Kyrie Irving, and I'm fine with it, by the way, but just come out and say it, Kyrie. What's the big deal at this point? You're already on the Boston Celtics. I am totally fine with the fact that Kyrie Irving no longer wanted to play with LeBron James. He didn't want to be his number two. He probably felt like in the year they won the championship, he hit all the biggest shots to help LeBron win that championship and got really none of the credit. It all went to LeBron James. He didn't want to play with LeBron anymore. I totally get it. Didn't want to be, his Robin, and didn't want to be his number two. Didn't want to be his wingman. He wanted to be a number one guy and go to the Celtics, and now he has a very good chance to win, although I don't think he'll win much there. I think he'll get to the Eastern Conference and lose. But my issue is just Kyrie not coming out and telling us what we all know is the case, is the fact that he did not want to play with LeBron James anymore. And I'm fine with that, but I'm not okay with him not saying it. Just say it already.
Last one, more beef with Kevin Durant arguing on social media or him using a fake account to do it?
Has he admitted to the fake account? I don't even know if he did. I'm reporting right now that A, he's not sorry, and B, he absolutely used a fake account. He's only sorry because he got caught. And I have a big issue with what he was saying on social media, that it's Billy Donovan's fault. Billy Donovan wasn't good enough. His supporting cast wasn't good enough. No, KD, you were up 3-1 against the Golden State Warriors. You, the best player in the world, you weren't good enough. It wasn't Donovan. It wasn't the supporting cast. You weren't good enough to close that series out. And because you weren't good enough to close that series out, you went and joined the Golden State Warriors because you couldn't beat them by yourself. So, no, that is all on KD. My issue is with KD and these secret Twitter accounts and him being so ridiculously overreactive to what fans think about him and what fans are saying about him.
That's well done. It's a good week. Stugotz here
Stu.
with Dan and company every day, coast to coast, starting right after us here on ESPN Radio. Thank you, Stu.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Mike Shefty's in our studio talking football with you. Paul Finebaum still to come this morning. One of the more interesting games on the schedule this weekend to me, Shefty, is Tampa Bay at Minnesota. We've only seen one game from the Bucs, and they look spectacular. Now they go to Minnesota, where the Vikings opened up really strong on that Monday night, and then in something of a surprise, they lose Bradford week 2, and we don't know what the situation is with him. We're hoping that you do. What are you hearing about Sam Bradford?
Mike Zimmer intimated that this is a decision that's going to go up to game time. He was limited in practice yesterday. They don't know whether he's going to be able to play on Sunday. Obviously, they want to see how the knee recovers. He's been undergoing a lot of treatment this week. It's not an issue of whether he can go out there and throw. There were some clips out there on social media of him throwing the football. We know he can do that. The question is, how is that twice surgically repaired knee that's had 2 ACL tears, that's been reconstructed, how is that knee going to hold up? And the injury occurred on a non-contact play. I don't think he ever got close to playing last week. I think they knew that all along, and they said it was going to be a game-time decision. And whenever they say it's a game-time decision, more often than not, usually they're not going to play the guy. They decide not to play him. They're hoping that he can make it back. I think they're preparing as if Case Keenum may be the guy this week because there's a big question. And they say they're going to take this up to game time. Look, they got to have Sam Bradford healthy and right, or that's going to be a big problem for that team.
And then we continue with the Andrew Luck situation where early in the weeks he's just out. It seems, Shefty, that he is a long way away. And I know they didn't put him on the PUP list, which would mean he'd have to miss the 6 weeks. But, boy, it doesn't seem
what? Let me say this.
We don't know what's going on in practice.
Look, there's a team. Let's keep this in mind. There's a team that didn't have a lot of roster depth. Okay, they claimed 5 players on the final cutdown. So the bottom part of their roster was disposable, largely. And so for them to keep Sam Bradford on the roster as a symbolic gesture to give these players hope, to give that community something to think about.
Luck, Andrew Luck.
What did I say?
You said Bradford.
Luck.
We know what you meant. Yeah.
Okay. To keep him on the roster, just from a mental standpoint, a morale standpoint, may have been worth it to them, particularly when there's a question about when he's going to be back. Look, as you mentioned, they've already said Luck is out. So if they rule him out on Monday and he's not practicing again this week, then I think it's safe for us right now to say we don't think he's playing next week in week 4 against Seattle. Now we're at week 5, so if you kept him on PUP, he was going to miss 6 games anyway.
Right.
And now you get to wonder if they're sitting there with a poor record at a certain point, what's the sense of even bringing him back? Right. Now, they have insisted that he's going to play this year. So we'll take them at their word. But I don't know that they've been completely accurate with their forecast for Andrew Luck because we've been told that he was going to be ready early on, going to be ready to go, might miss the beginning of the season. Nothing has seemed to match up. Yeah. And all we can go by the facts right now, we're 3 weeks in, he's not practicing, he's not playing, and it doesn't look like he's going to do that anytime soon.
And there's one more we wanted from you today, and that is the situation with Lawrence Timmons, which, the reporting got kind of weird. You've been on top of it. Timmons disappeared from his teammates, and then he wanted to come back and play. They wouldn't let him play. He's suspended. We don't know how long. What do we know about the situation with Timmons in Miami?
Well, first of all, basically, they filed a missing persons report on Saturday because they had no idea where he was. That's not the way you want to head into the start of your regular season with your star linebacker, your big free agent acquisition, basically going missing. Now, he showed up early Sunday morning, and apparently he wanted to play. They sent him home. So he spent the early part of this week, and we didn't hear what happened with it, meeting with doctors. Gives you an idea of where this is at. There's some questions and concern about his well-being at this point in time. It's also devolved right now, as it always does, into a money issue because the Dolphins paid him a lot of money, and there's a lot of money at stake, and they don't feel like they are entitled to have to pay him the money that they already have invested in him. So I think we're going to see these two sides fight over the money that's involved here, and I think that his future in Miami is at best in question, tenuous, unlikely. My own personal sense is he'll never play for that team again.
Really?
Correct.
It's amazing. Was in Pittsburgh for the years. I think it was a 2-year deal he signed. Was it not for Miami? I believe it was. But, they expected a lot out of this guy. So much now.
They were counting on him.
Absolutely goes AWOL. And so much so now they're not that they traded for Stephon Anthony to fill that spot.
All right, he's Adam Schefter, and he's with us here and all the insight. Again, the big story today that the deal is being papered. Roger Goodell will get that extension. Do you think there was significant opposition? I mean, was there ever any real question?
I think all along that the owner, they were never going to get enough owners to shoot it down and block him. But there were various points, like Jerry Jones wanting to see if there could be somebody else that could be brought in there for that job. It just never got to that point.
That would have been really interesting. Where does he go from there? And maybe more to the point, who would be the person who would come in next if they were to make the replacement? It turns out we won't have to know.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Busy morning on this Thursday. Presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guest, like Paul Finebaum on the Shell Pennzoil Performance side. He'll join us in a moment. Obviously, a lot of conversation about safety today. Usually it's player safety in football. Today it's fan safety in baseball. I hate the thought that you have to have an event like this for something to be done. It should have been done. We were talking about it last year and the year before, and it's
that's
been
the
talked
thing.
about regularly.
Yeah, this isn't something that happened and went, oh, my God, wow, we didn't see anything like this coming. We need to do something. This has been talked about, to your point. We talked about it and then kind of shelved. Talked about it and shelved. Some, maybe a minor league park did something. We know in Japan they've done some of this, but it never really grabbed hold to be done everywhere. And again, don't think this is a Manfred thing where he can just put his hand up and say everybody put a net up. It doesn't work that way. So I'll be really interested, I'm sure, with a lot of other people to see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, so we'll continue talking about that, but we have a lot of matters to get to with Mr. Finebaum from the Paul Finebaum Show, and he joins us every week, and he's with us right now. Good morning, Paul Finebaum.
Greeny, I've got to tell you, a friend of mine just texted me, and he said, would you please tell Mike Greenberg to pronounce your name correctly? And I had to text the guy back and say that Mike Greenberg pronounces my name correctly. I pronounce it incorrectly.
See, there you go.
Now, here's this has come up many times before. I'm not capable of seeing the spelling of your name and not saying Finebaum. I'm just not capable of it.
The first time I ever, long story short, when I was a kid, I would pronounce my name Finebaum because my parents were from New York. And the teacher would say, okay, thank you, Finebaum. So finally, after about the third grade, I gave up. And it's only when I'm in New York seeing relatives that they pronounce it correctly, or when I'm on Mike and Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I'm not capable.
Long story short, it's a German name. It means fine tree, which is Baum is tree in German. So you are correct. I am wrong. Sue me if I play too long.
No, I keep trying to. I say it. I do the best I can. It's pronounced as though the second syllable is B-O-M-B, right?
That's a Southern thing. We like bombs.
Yeah. Which is all good. Finebaum. I mean, I understand.
So between his name and Wojnarowski.
No. Well, I just can't say it for whatever reason. I just can't say it.
Well, you call him Woj. Why don't you say fine?
What should Paul, what do you have a nickname, who know you well? Yeah.
I have never had a nickname. I've never had anything. So
I've heard you call things that we can't say on air, but I don't think that. Yeah.
Yeah. No. There's usually like an ing before my name.
Gotcha. All right. Paul Finebaum is with us here. That sounded pretty good there. I thought
there you go.
Got
that. I like Baum better.
Okay. For the longest time now, Paul, it feels as though Alabama has just owned college football, and there's no reason to think that they don't still, and that they won't be there at the end again this year and maybe win the whole thing. I feel like with the couple of weeks that we've seen with the Auburn game and now this past week with the nationally televised Louisville game, there's a whole lot of Clemson is the new Alabama kind of conversation going on out there. I hear a little bit of laughter. What is your reaction?
Well, no, I'm laughing because it's hard for some people in the South, in the SEC country, to admit that, but right now, you have three programs in this country that are on the same level. Ohio State may still be there. We'll find out later. But Clemson and Alabama are like what we see in the NBA Finals every year with Golden State and Cleveland. And give Dabo Swinney credit. No one has taken a program farther against all odds than he has. And the irony is that he went to Alabama and he has replicated what they do down there. And he's done it fairly close to what Nick Saban. Not quite. I still think they may be a hair below, although Clemson fans would argue. But should they meet again and should Dabo win this time? that would be a major game changer.
We've asked this question a few times. We bring it up a lot, like with the UConn women, but that's a single team in college basketball. If these two teams meet again, that's the old adage, okay, it's just these two teams for 3 years. Is that bad for college football?
I don't think it's bad, although you guys have been there the last couple of years. It is still a regional matchup, and I think the nation craves for something a little bigger and broader, even if Clemson and Alabama are the two best teams in the country. I mean, personally, I'd rather see Urban Meyer and Ohio State. I think it broadens the scope of college football. I'm a fan of college football, but these schools are fairly close to each other. But if they're the two best, then it's not my decision to stand in the way and say you can't come. But I don't know. I'm not sitting around yearning for another matchup. And by the way, not that anybody needs to make this point here, but we're only 3 games into it. I think we're giving maybe we're putting Clemson in the finals a little bit early here.
Yeah, I mean, just the defense. I was tweeting about it this weekend, and I had 1 million people immediately tweeting back at me. I'll defer to your expertise on this, because I tweeted how incredibly impressed I was by their defense against Lamar Jackson in Louisville, and then I immediately get, what the world is like. I get people telling me, well, no, Louisville stinks. So I said, well, how about what they did to Auburn the week before? And then I heard back, well, no, Auburn stinks. Does Auburn stink? I mean, you tell me.
Yeah, Auburn may stink, but listen, that was still an amazing performance. I talked to Danny Sheridan yesterday, the odds maker, and he said if they met right now in Atlanta and on a neutral site, Alabama would be a 2-point favorite. That's significantly less than last year when Alabama was about a touchdown favorite. So at least the street or Vegas has renewed respect for Clemson. And again, that may sound silly considering they are the reigning champion. But what's so interesting is they won the game, and then the next day when all the way too early polls came out for this season, Alabama was already back in number 1, and they followed that up by being the preseason. And that's because of Deshaun Watson leaving. But Brian is really good. I don't think he's Deshaun Watson yet, even though Deshaun Watson says he is. But they still have some challenges, and they have to head to Florida State later in the season. And I know we have just completely written FSU off without Francois, and I talked to Jimbo about it yesterday. They will have gone 21 days between games, but I don't think they are completely dead yet.
Yeah, I heard him on your show talking about you can only practice so much. You got to get into a game situation, and through obviously no fault of their own, it's been a horrible situation down there. Sometimes you count teams out. Sometimes teams come into the mix. And are we getting that possibly in Mississippi State? I don't think it's unbelievably shocking they beat LSU, but it is a little more shocking the way they dismantled them. And now they take on Georgia. We've been looking really good running the ball, certainly in that fast defense. And then after that, they have Auburn, which we all don't think as much of as maybe others do. And then you have to wait till probably Alabama in November. But is this Mississippi State? Are they on your radar?
Well, yeah, I was down there last weekend, and you could feel it. That was a long time coming game, and LSU was just poorly prepared. The discipline on the LSU side was atrocious, bringing all kinds of conversations about Ed Orgeron before he completed his 3rd week as the permanent head coach. But I don't think Mississippi State, Mike, will get through the next 2 weeks. I think, frankly, they would be. They wouldn't be, but I would think they would be happy with a split. I think they'll lose Saturday night. I really believe Georgia is better than we're giving them credit for. So, but again, if State can survive this, this is reminding some people of 2014 when this little-known quarterback named Dak Prescott led them to the number 1 ranking in the season for 7 weeks.
Mike and Mike, Paul Finebaum is with us here, brought to you by Goodyear Tires, as hardworking as college football's most blimp-worthy athletes. Goodyear, the official sponsor of the college football playoff. I asked this next question somewhat hesitantly because I don't want everyone calling into your show and yelling and screaming about me.
Oh, I would. I'd love it.
I am merely passing along what some of the conventional wisdom seems to be, and that is that for many, many years now, the SEC has been the best conference in college football, and that right now Alabama is propping it up, and that when you get past Alabama, there is a major drop-off, and that they are by no means the best conference in college football right now. If one were to make that statement, would it be accurate?
I think our sound just went out here. I did not hear the question. Greeny, it is accurate, and it's time to tell the truth down here. The SEC won 6 straight national championships and owned college football, but it doesn't anymore. And I really believe it's not simple, but I think you have to look at the coaching. You go back 10 years ago, Urban Meyer was winning championships at Florida. Like him or not, Bobby Petrino was at Arkansas. Spurrier was in the league. You really had quality coaching. Les Miles was winning a national championship, and I think the coaching hires have been very questionable. A lot of recycled coaches, a lot of Nick Saban disciples. Some have worked out, some haven't, and I think there is a coaching crisis right now in the SEC. It does not compare to the upper echelon of the Big Ten, the ACC, or even the Pac-12. And I still think if you show up in late April on draft day, you're going to see more SEC players selected, but it doesn't translate on the field, and I think it's because of the head coaching position.
Isn't that interesting, Mike? So if the best talent is still down there, and yet they don't have the best teams, does that suggest they're not being the players are being developed, but they're for whatever reason it's not translating on the field?
Well, I mean, look at LSU. They had Beckham a couple of years ago. They had Fournette. They didn't do that much with first-round draft choices on the team, and they had plenty of others on the defensive side of the ball. And it's just now Les Miles managed to get less out of talent than anyone the last couple of years, but I think it goes across the board now. And then you have Dan Mullen on the other side, who is a very underrated coach who helped develop Dak. He's done it with Tebow and Alex Smith, and now he's doing it with Nick Fitzgerald. So, I mean, there are some bright spots, but there are some really average to terrible coaching jobs being done in this conference right now.
And for what it's worth, over the last 2 years, the SEC is 16-20 against non-conference Power 5 opponents. The Pac-12, the ACC, and the Big Ten all have a better record in such games.
So in your mind, Paul, how deep is the SEC of forgetting the rankings of top 20, how many SEC teams would you say these could be national power teams?
1. Maybe 2. I think Georgia has an outside shot, and I'm not reading all that much into the win in South Bend. But before the season, we thought maybe Auburn, and again, maybe something can change. But it's really distressing, and what's really interesting, the fan bases across the board are just downright angry. Kentucky fans aren't upset. They're undefeated right now. Vanderbilt fans are okay, and state fans. But we had more calls from Florida fans this week, just really wanting to throw Jim McElwain over the top. And that came after a dramatic win over Tennessee. There are just a lot of these fans just don't think they have the right coach. Someone's in trouble. We know that. Bielema hasn't performed that well. Butch Jones is on and off the hot seat in Knoxville. Malzahn is on and off the hot seat at Auburn. So, I mean, these are, and I mentioned McElwain, these are very prominent coaches in a league, and a lot of people around the country are going, why are they prominent? What have they done? And it's a really good question.
All right, it's Paul Finebaum. Very interesting stuff here at a time maybe of a little bit of transition for what has been the power conference in college football for what feels like a very long time. Paul, thank you. I'll continue working on the last name. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, guys. Talk next week.
I was trying to think. There's someone else whose name I was always getting wrong. Forget about Woj, because I just can't, for whatever reason, can't say his name. But there's someone else, for lack of a better word, who has a Jewish-sounding last name that I always pronounce that way, and they don't, and I was always corrected on it. Now it's just jumped out of my head who it was. But this was something that
I don't know it.
It's going to come to me at some point here. It'll come to me.
It'll come to you at some point.
But I just can't. Like Finebaum is Finebaum, right? I mean, that's just, to me, that's just how you say his name. Well, I mean, you can say, you can pronounce anything any way you want.
Right.
I remember one year the Bears.
Well, I mean, you should pronounce things the way they want you to pronounce them, or the way they think their name is.
Okay. So you tell me. The Bears drafted a player one year when I was covering them. He spelled his name Octis. And we asked him, how do you pronounce that? And he said, Otis. So there was a silent C in his name. Well, I mean, can you do that? Are you allowed to just put a sign? Like if I said to you,
let me quickly clue you in on something.
Yeah,
he didn't do it.
No, I understand.
Okay,
that.
I mean, he didn't.
But just hear me out.
Okay.
If I said to you, my name is spelled Fred, I pronounce it George. Is that okay? No, it's not. At some point, there are limitations.
Like you've done for
you've done
for 18 years, you go too far. Okay,
it's Finebaum.
You go too far.
What do you want from me?
It's Finebaum.
It's Finebaum.
Baum.
It just is. Listen, Golic, it's Finebaum.
Is it November 17th yet?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to convince you of this one before I go.
Not.
You're not allowed to take a name that Jewish and not pronounce it that way.
If the man has a silent C, then the man has a silent C. Okay?
He has a right to it. Exactly.
He has a right to a silent C.
His mama named him Finebaum. I'm going to call him Finebaum. That's all there is to it. Okay, Mike and Mike. By the way, our next top-ranked boxing title fight is tomorrow.
Okay.
It's Oscar Valdez putting his WBO featherweight title on the line against Genesis Cervania. The undercard starts at 7:30 Eastern. The main event is 10:30 Eastern, live on ESPN, ESPN Deportes, and the ESPN app. I got an email here, another email from Chris Mortensen.
Okay.
I know who this is from. Mort, if you're listening, send another note saying, do you want me to identify who it's from or not? Because he didn't say so. He said...
Make sure you put the name the right way because Greeny will mispronounce it.
No, but you'll know who it is. But anyway, Mort said he got a call from someone who said to him, please pass this along to the fellas, meaning you and me.
Okay.
And he agrees with you. And he's someone that you know. I don't want to say his name unless...
He agrees with me. I want to hear it then.
He said, I absolutely agree with Golic on projecting players into the NFL and that speed is a non-factor for a tackle and can extend to the interior. Tell those guys the absolute critical factors for offensive linemen are, number one, size. If not big enough, they can't play. Number two, strength. If not strong enough, they can't play. Number three, quickness. Secondarily, factors you want that are not physical are number one, football intelligence. Number two, enjoy the grind. Number three, weight room commitment. And number four, toughness. So size, strength, and then quickness. And that's from someone who had an extraordinarily successful career in football evaluating talent.
Yeah, listen, I would agree with that. Now size, listen, I'm not going to lose my mind on size because we've seen guys not fit the mold and still succeed at different positions, but there certainly is some validity to that, without question, especially on the offensive line. You do need some size and girth to you, no doubt about it. I'll say it. I every time I watch the combine, I lose my mind at the 40-yard dash. Stop at the 10. I don't care what they jump, how high, and I don't care how far they jump. How do they work out? What kind of commitment do they have in the weight room? The bench press to me is fine for a test. The bench press, to me, doesn't do a whole lot on the field. I go more the incline. That's more how your body level is on an incline than on a bench press. But certainly, if you can incline a lot of times you can bench a lot, depending on shoulder injuries and the such. And I do go on toughness, especially on that interior. My tackles need to have hands like boxers and feet like dancers. Okay, they don't need the straight ahead speed and all that. I drives me nuts. Good hands, good feet. Stay in front of your man, extend, don't let him into your body. That's what you're looking for. And interior, you need the grind guys. You need the guys that will block you, that will kick you, that will step on you, that won't help you up or go back to the huddle and knee on the way to it. Sorry if that sounds offensive, but that's the way I want them. Not to say they're all that way, but that's what you want to see. And you all need to be... You need to be versatile as well. If you're a guard and you're a really good guard, make sure you know how to snap the ball. If you can play left tackle, play right tackle. You know, we can see tackles go inside. You see tackles that can move in. It's difficult to be inside and move out. It takes a little more. When I say a better athlete to play tackle, that doesn't mean faster and jump higher and all those measurables. It means you're a better athlete at playing the offensive line position as far as hands and feet are concerned, especially with the speed rushers.
Can I ask you a question?
Ask.
All kidding aside, because I understand what you're saying, and it certainly sounds like it makes sense to me, and obviously you know 1,000 times more about this than I do. But they do these things at the Combine, and they're not doing it for their health.
Listen,
they're not doing it because they feel it's a waste of time.
Here's why.
There's obviously a reason.
Here's one of the reasons they do it. And Bill Polian has said this, because Bill and I will disagree to some regard on the validity of needing all that. Bill basically puts it in a box and says the successful ones fit in this box. That doesn't mean they all fit in this box, but the successful ones usually fit in this box of parameters of a 40 dash at least this fast to this slow, a jump of this high to this high. So there's a box they fit in. And I get that, again, to a point. There's a point I like to see that. But, man, for me, if I never saw the combine, it wouldn't make one bit of difference to me. I would love, whenever I'm done with all this, I would love to be a scout. I would just love to go out and scout because I really feel like I can watch somebody play. I can look at their tape at any position because I think I know what it would take for those positions of what you need to look like and how you need to move. And I would love to be able to do that. And part of it, I'm sorry, is just not a 40-yard dash or how high you can jump. It still blows my mind that a guy does a broad jump and you go, oh, my God, he went 11 feet, he's up in the first round. I don't get it. Again, what I said that should do is make you go back and watch more tape on that person to see if on the football field that translates. So I get what Bill's saying, and you're absolutely right. They do it for a reason because there's so many people that you want some standards, you want some markers. My point is be careful of how much you put on those markers. I get having the markers, but just be careful of when you make your lists that the markers aren't that high on the list and the markers are so, okay, let me put some extra emphasis on the person and make sure they have the skills that translate to the next level.
We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line have a lot of people reacting to our pronunciation conversation and all bringing up the name Brett Favre.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how you can have a word that is spelled F-A-V-R-E and pronounce it Favre, it still doesn't make sense.
That's Ben Stiller.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, if for those of you who know the movie Something About Mary, Brett Favre. And it took a long time when he first came into the league that everyone didn't think his name was Brett Favre. And, I mean, he became very good.
Because he wasn't a star right away, and if you played against him, they may not remember you played against him because nobody knew who he was when you played against him.
And then other people can immediately produce a photo of you playing against him. Listen, of the two of us, there was only one of us who had a chance to have played against Brett Favre.
He wasn't Brett Favre then. He was still Favre then, okay? Favre.
It's Finebaum. I don't care what anybody says.
Finebaum.
First time skydiving?
Sure is.
Okay, you just open the door like this and you jump.
Oh, wait. Should we be like in tandem?
Tandem? That's a great idea.
Are you a certified instructor?
No, but I love parachutes and I love people. Here we go.
You wouldn't take chances with an uncertified skydiving instructor. Don't do it with your finances. Find a certified financial planner professional today at letsmakeaplan.org. CFP. Work with the highest standard.